Welcome to the Coins and Connections podcast with me, Cinquanta Cox-Smith. We're talking books, business, and of course, a little bit of bullshit. If you're looking for inspiration, motivation, or just a good time, you've come to the right place. Ready, set, let's go! If I can make my clothes, I can save so much money. Hey, coin snatchers, welcome to the Hustle File series, chronicles of a side hustler's success, failures, and lessons learned. Today, I'll be talking about my sewing hustle. I'll answer how I started, what I learned, how I market, and what I would do differently now. So let's get into the episode. The sewing hustle. One of the things that really inspired this idea and the earliest memory that I can think of wanting to sew and then learning those type of skills comes from middle school where we had home ec, and it's kind of like not even a class anymore, but I remember we learned how to sew in that class. I think we made like this tiny little pillow or something like that, but it was like my first introduction to me doing any needlework with sewing and then learning kind of different stitches. And I think that pretty much stuck with me. I've always enjoyed like enhancing my clothes or cutting things up or painting my clothing. So I had done a little bit of stuff like that up until my adulthood. So like my use of elastic, my mom had a sewing machine as well. So, we did small stuff. I believe somewhere around 2011, 2012. I don't know if it was YouTube, but I decided I wanted to start sewing for real, for real. So I think I went to Joann's and I started spending money on fabric, and my mom had this small sewing machine that she gave to me that she no longer used, and that kind of got me started on my journey, and what a ride it was. Some of the first steps I took was to get the sewing machine that was handed down for me from my mom, and I wanted to sew like this maxi skirt. So maxi skirts were super popular. It was the stretchy ones, the long ones, some of them like flared out like a mermaid at the bottom. But I wanted to try to sew this, and it was crazy because I kind of thrust myself into this by trying to sew on jersey knits and stretchy fabrics, and that really didn't come out too well. One of the first like kind of outfits that I made was a gray fleece. It was like the sweatpants fabric. I made this off the shoulder skirt romper. Now it was cute. It was not stitched well, and some of the stitches broke when I was trying to like put it on because of the waist part didn't have the elastic right. It was just a mess. So like I didn't know I needed to do zigzag stitches with my elastic, just little things that I did not know that I needed to learn. So that's kind of what took me deeper into this hustle. And one of the things that some of the challenges that I faced when I started to look back at what I have done and all the mistakes I made, I dove deeper into the research and I came across Mimi G Style. I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with her YouTube channel. And then I watched her and I learned a lot. She showed so many different things from beginner stage up until like master seamstress, right? She was pretty consistent with posting. And then I also was following Butte Jador, but her and Mimi G both eventually have their own patterns on the market. So they have come a long way in the sewing industry. And I love their channels and all the information that I was able to learn from that. I followed tutorials that I found, learning how to make my own patterns, learning how to make my own pocket pattern, and learning how to make patterns from other items at home that I have. I just learned so much from YouTube, and then back on Pinterest, a lot of people would make their own patterns, and they would either sell it or upload it as a template for free, where you can like print it out on your home computer. So I did a lot of things like that. The knowledge that I was soaking up was really helpful for me. And then I also used like quilted squares to do smaller projects, but just to basically get to the point when it came to learning how to stitch correctly, back stitch, add a stitch, zigzag stitch, how to make sure I sew down a seam, just things like that. All of these things just made me become better. So with the sewing hustle, one of the ways and strategies, also platforms that I did use to sell initially out the gate, I did not start selling right away. I didn't start selling anything till probably maybe 2015 when I moved to Kansas. It was like this off the shoulder elastic peplum top. It was like flowy. I did some denim. I did some with a floral fabric. But those were kind of like my first like push into selling something that I had handmade on a sewing machine. And I think I just used Facebook and Instagram to post. People inquired, and then I sent like PayPal invoices. Eventually, I moved on to Big Cartel and Square so I could sell skirts on those platforms. My African print skirts were really huge. Anywhere from 2016 to 2019, I would sew them for myself, and then some of the people and friends that I had at church, I would also ship some of those. And then around 2020, I made over 100 masks when COVID started, and I did majority of that on Etsy. But I also continue to like market via Facebook and Instagram, and then also through just talking to people in my friend groups, and then those who might have just reached out and said that they needed masks as well. I probably even got a few sales via Snapchat. Some of the things that worked really good was knowing how to make a few different variations of skirts. So whether that was like high-low skirts, pleated skirts, skirts with slits, skirts with pockets, skirts with zippers, or even made with elastic. I did realize that making skirts with zippers was not always fun because sometimes someone might have given me the wrong waist size, so then I would be kind of stuck because then it's too small or it's too big. So I started doing elastic, which is a very forgiving way to do the skirts, and that to me was so much better, and I think I really and truly enjoy doing it that way. I also had to learn like how to pack the skirts and just make it nice. So that was another thing. I just really wanted this to work because I really enjoyed it. Some of the tools or tips or insights that I can share from this. One of my biggest things is just to always keep learning your craft and not giving up. I took on a lot of failures, and I learned how to just turn it around and learn from my mistake, continue to read, always be a student in this life of ever changing things. Having a side chart that you possibly make when it comes to sewing, and that's how you stick with it for your measurements. Just because anyone else who has a clothing line, Levi, Gap, they all have their standard sewing size and measurement charts. So when you start to sew, you can create what is your measurements for your size chart so that you can do more bulk orders like that versus having to have all these different sizes, and you can do an arrangement of a little mashed potato of sizes. So some of the things that I did learn, some of my biggest takeaways would be that this hustle taught me grit and determination. Learning how to sew is really a flex because it's not easy. And if it was, everybody and their mama would have a sewing machine. And it would be a whole making clothes era thing. Like having that skill, I feel, is an amazing thing right now. It's something that everyone should learn, and you should know how to do a stitch, whether it's by hand. You should know how to install some type of elastic. You should know how to do some hem tape with an iron or sewing on a button. I think it's just little skills like that could take you into a life or death situation. You can quickly fix things, add things, and it'll just make your life easier in general. So what I would do differently if I was to start the sewing hustle now, I would probably avoid letting people try to bring fabric to me. I would make sure that I have what I have on hand, and I would stick to those colors and not take a lot of outside. I feel like if I put up what I have, and this is what I'm working with right now, and if you want it, you should buy it. If not, you can't persuade me to go do something or sew something different, because we are all at different levels of novice, intermediate, beginner, and sometimes people want runway style when you really have Ross thrift store budget. So things like that, sometimes gets a little different. Stick to what you know, stick to your specific fabrics that you work well with. Don't try to take on too much. And having products on hand is always like a game changer. I would avoid, not having the amount of elastic that I put up for sale in my possession. Don't oversell yourself. And another thing that I would probably either continue to use Etsy or Shopify. I would probably pre-make at least 2 products for each listing, or at least one product for each size. I would probably do a small video shoot, photo shoot with my sizes or skirts, and I would probably like style them to give her a better look so people can actually see what they're getting. But to me, all in all, this was a great hustle, and I feel like I could probably still sell skirts till this day. I still have my sewing machine, and I've torn apart a sewing machine. I put it back together. I've been pricked with a needle. I probably almost sewed my hand together. But I have done a lot with that sewing machine, and I've learned a lot, and we have a love-hate relationship. But one day I'll probably, get back into it. So let's go ahead and recap the key lessons from my sewing hustle. Start small and keep learning. Trial and error is a part of the process. Adapt your products based on feedback. Leverage social media for marketing, and plan for scalability and logistics. So don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed this episode of the Hustle File series. Next time, we'll be talking about a different hustle in the new year. So I hope you guys enjoyed this last episode of 2024, and we'll kick it back off with the Hustle series in 2025. Thanks for tuning in to the Coins and Connections podcast. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and leave a review if you enjoyed today's episode. Until next time.